as we did last time with our other lunch and learns, if you are happy with have your consent to, I'd like to record myself in this presentation. And what I do is my dulcet tones will be added to the slides, so nothing will be recorded necessarily of you guys directly. And then I put that up onto our YouTube link. So if anyone wants to go back, listen to a couple of things, or look at references or so, they're most welcome to do. So is everyone happy that I'm recording? Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So, welcome. Thank you very much for giving up some of your time and to our lunch and learn. A few new faces, but a couple of others who I recognise from other opportunities. For those people who haven't met, my name is Roger Wood. We're from Innate Family Chiropractic Centre. I'm joined by my long-suffering practice manager, Rachel, and certainly after our talk today, we'll hang around if there's any questions or so that you'd like to ask us. Be certainly free to ask those. To get some of the nitty-gritty out of the way from today's talk, the topic today is going to be general in a sense, but also can be very specific. So it's actually quite hard over the weekend working us to try and keep this in the time frame that I've been allocated, because once you get going and it becomes a bigger topic. But nothing that I go through today is really aimed at any specific condition or specific person or any particular relevance to an individual. We always identify that our lunch and learn talks are there to stimulate interest and participation, and hopefully also a journey and of interest for each individual. But nothing here is designed to give specific medical or healthcare advice. Obviously, we'd encourage people to seek such advice from a suitably trained professional. A slight conflict of interest, some of the companies or tests or anything that I go through today, we have working relationships with. So in some of the products or any things that I mention as a business, we have a vested interest because we have an association as far as a commission. So just to make you aware of that. For those who haven't spent time with our lunch and learn talks, as a chiropractic centre, we have two main specific branches or arms to our care. One of them being the chiropractic wellness side of things, the other one being the functional medicine. The chiropractic element is we're a wellness-based chiropractic centre. We have an emphasis more on vitalistic overall health and well-being, and so we are generally not specifically about bad backs. From that element, we see that within modern day healthcare, we have really two care systems. We have a sickness care system and a health and wellness based system. One which is very much relating on the relief of symptoms. Another one is really aimed at our optimal expression of health. And the important thing to identify is that we need both of these systems to coexist. On the functional medicine side, functional medicine really identifies not merely of what someone's symptoms is, but identifying what is the root cause of the body expressing the symptoms or disease process. So it's really about looking at a stronger or deeper level of investigation into the cause and the root cause of illness rather than just relief of symptoms. Some of these things we've gone through in other talks, so I am whizzing through them, but just to kind of give a bit of a recap. The one thing which we identify within wellness care as well as also functional system is when we look at the chronic diseases that are facing more modern day life, we're actually seeing the net result of chronic life stresses or lifestyle stresses. From our last talk, you might remember the concept of homeostasis. Homeostasis is the concept of trying to keep the temperature and the level of water in the bath the same with the plug out and the hot and cold water on. The sense of the body is trying to maintain a consistent level of optimal function with lots of variable factors coming in and out all the time. When this goes awry, we generally have in a state in the body a state of inflammation. And so we look at the life with that, and the option of harmony or disharmony, we either got too much of something or too little. And within our functional system, within our practice, we then have the move well, think well, and eat well concepts. When you look at how the body is out of sync and out of function, it's really going to be due to it is naturally responding to physical, emotional, or chemical stresses. So with that in mind, and very much in our modern day life, diversity is a very significant and hot topic. What I'd like you to do is think of diversity, but in relation to your gut. Because today's talk is really about gut diversity or gut health. In the last number of years, the gut has carried or has attracted a huge amount of attention. The lecture I went to probably now about 8 years ago, one of the researchers suggested that in around 2000, 2005, there's probably around 2 to 5 studies on gut or gut health or gut microbiome per year worldwide. Now that's in the hundreds of thousands annually. And it's gained more and more attention, so that everyone here probably has heard of, even if we don't totally understand, the idea of good bacteria or gut bacteria. So we actually trace the concepts of the importance of gut and health all the way back to the Hippocratic Oath. So we associate a lot of gastrointestinal function with a lot of modern day diseases. Now, this isn't necessarily saying that the gut is the cause of these, but it has been, in research, has an association. It can influence some of these conditions, and some of these conditions will be directly affected by the gastrointestinal tract. So when we're looking at the management of these conditions, we need to be looking at the gut. That's its importance. Some interesting facts of the gut. It's around just over 7 meters long. It has the primary role, obviously, is to receive food, move through to the gut, but also absorb and absorb nutrients and important chemicals. But it also has a time of transit, which we'll see becomes very important. So when we swallow food, it takes around 9 seconds to reach the stomach. So peristalsis is the movement, it's the way of the muscles of how it moves a bolus of food down the gut. It stays in the stomach for around 2 hours, and the small intestine, which is the next session, for 2.5 to 3 hours, and then the large intestine up to 18 hours. And with constipation, that's going to be longer. The two main functions of the gut is to protect us and for absorption. And a lot of people understand the absorption, that's where we get our nutrients, that's where we're going to get our vitamins and minerals from. But actually, what we forget is that the gut main function is also to protect us. The gut is actually an extension of our skin. If you think of it as far as a tube, it's a continuation of our skin, then going inside and then coming out again. So it's also in direct contact with the environment. That environment just happens to be the food that we're passing through. That food is going to contain bacteria, viruses, parasites, and your body has to protect so that the good stuff gets in and the not so good stuff stays out. And one of the significant tools that the body has, which facilitates that function, is the microbiome. And what is the microbiome? It's bounced around. And the microbiome, in today's talk concepts that I want to cover, is really what it is, the concept of diversity. And there's a lot of misunderstanding of what's a prebiotic and what's a probiotic, and what does that actually mean. So a microbiome is actually referred to as it's a community of microorganisms. So it can be bacteria, it can be fungi, it can be viruses that exist in a specific environment. For us, today's talk is identifying the microbiome in our gut, but we have a microbiome on our skin, we have a microbiome in our ears, we have a microbiome in any environment. There will be a collection of microorganisms. So, some gut bacteria facts. The gut bacteria can weigh up to around 5 pounds. Its general function in the gut is to help with protection, as I said, digestion and absorption. The gut bacteria also regulate our immune system. The gut bacteria also protect us against other bacteria's overgrowth. So the bacteria in our gut actually helps maintain the correct balance of its own bacteria within the gut. And you'll see later the problems that exist when that balance is disrupted. The gut bacteria also are importantly involved in the production of certain vitamins, minerals, vitamin B12 being a significant one, with vitamin B1 and 2, which have important aspects of cardiovascular health as well as energy production, and then your vitamin K, which is about blood clotting. So we forget that actually some of these vital functions of the body have a huge direct relationship with the gut bacteria. They also produce chemicals that help with absorption and actually protect the gut lining. And also some of these minerals and vitamins and minerals, as well as also some of the enzymes, have a direct influence on our nervous system, on our neurotransmitters, so on our health, mental health, our mood. And also an interesting fact is that the gut bacteria have a very significant effect on our sleep patterns. In fact, the question is do we sleep in relationship to the gut, or the gut make us sleep, with the concept of the circadian rhythm? What I mean by that is we know that the gut bacteria migrate and move into different parts of the gut at different times of the day. This is why we digest at certain peak times in the day better than others. So the worst one is the night shift workers. The night shift workers who eat in the middle of the night, the gut bacteria are tucked up nicely in bed. They're going into sleep mode. So they have a direct influence with melatonin and sleep hormones, and so the digestive system is now in sleep mode. Now we're going to eat food. So it gets thrown around. So we've never really seen a shift worker or a night worker have a very settled, ideally functioning gut. And when you understand the knock-on effect, we also see significant chronic health issues in those people who have done significant night work or shift work. That's a significant factor with the gut. So the question is are we putting the bacteria to bed, or the bacteria putting us to bed? The best way I've learned through the years to describe the microbiome is like a garden. So a garden like this has a great supply of water, it has lots of different plants, it has a very diverse collection of plants, it's thriving, it's got an adequate amount of light, and so this is a thriving garden. And so if you look at your gut bacteria as the plants, we ideally want a thriving system, ecosystem, as opposed to plants, but into bacteria. So when we look at probiotics and prebiotics are your seeds. So when we have a garden which is bare but we've got soil, we throw seeds out for those seeds to grab into the soil, take the nutrients, and then to germinate and thrive. So that's what we do when we take a probiotic. Take a probiotic is like scattering seeds onto our garden. The important thing with the seeds is we need the right seeds for the right soil, for the right environment, and ideally we want a collection of multiple different seeds at once. If you have a garden, you want lots of different plants. It will give you the diversity. So as you see in your packs, you have a seed bomb, which is going to remind you of the importance of lots of different seeds. It's not just one plant, it's a multitude of different plants, so that you have that country garden, that meadow effect within our gut. The prebiotic is what you would have laid down in the soil to result in a fertile, receptive soil for the seeds to then germinate in. As you know, if you throw your seeds onto a concrete path, there's very little. You can keep throwing seeds, you can keep taking probiotics every night. They're really not going to do any of the good stuff because they are like falling on barren ground. So the prebiotic is what creates the best environment for the probiotic, the seeds, to then germinate and flourish. And then obviously, when they all come together, We need a little bit of TLC. We need to look after the garden. We need to nourish it. We need to keep feeding it. We need the adequate amount of sunlight, warmth, and we need water. So we need to take care of the gut so that it can sustain. So in a diversity in the garden is the same within the gut. The diversity is about the amount of plants, the amount of gut bacteria, and also the variety. And it's the amount and the variety combination that gives us the gut, its strength, its adaptability, its robustness. So when we do fall ill, the gut bacteria can bounce back, and it gives us also our optimal function. So we're getting all the good stuff that the gut and gut bacteria can provide us. When things go wrong, or things are out of balance, the gut starts to look like this. We lose the diversity, we lose the amount, we lose the variety. So that's going to result in the system, the benefit of the gut bacteria to deteriorate, and we have a system which is now weak, vulnerable, it has limited adaptability, and it's going to provide us with poor function. How do we achieve the poor function? We need chronic stress, we need poor sleep, we need a lack of physical movement, we need to focus diet on being a low variety of diets, so very specific, only 1 or 2 food choices, generally of being of the ultra-processed, nutritionally lacking food, food that is already dead. We want to focus on high sugar, high simple carbohydrate food because the gut bacteria imbalance is going to just look for sudden, quick energy, so it munches up very quick, easy sugars. Ideally, looking at habits like alcohol, smoking. Smoking has a huge impact on the gut microbiome. And then looking at different medications, oral medications particularly because they've got to be processed in the gut. Antibiotics being the bigger one. Obviously, antibiotics have a direct effect on bacteria. And then also just generally other chronic illnesses, which have an indirect or direct effect on the gut, especially other conditions of the gut. So when it all goes wrong, there's a couple of situations which I've chosen to highlight. This one you're not going to hear so much directly in the main medical pathway because they're going to be very much more interested in what your symptoms are, whereas this is describing actually what the problem is. SIBO stands for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So you've got an overgrowth of some of the bacteria and then less of others. So you've got an imbalance. It used to be seen as that there was just an imbalance. There's good and bad bugs, and the bad ones have got the upper hand. But actually, the modern day research is suggesting that it's actually about the location. You have different bacteria which thrive in different parts of the gut. And this is also where a lot of the gut bacteria in the lower colon, which is more about absorption of water, and that has got into the small intestine. So you've got an imbalance of the incorrect bacteria in the wrong place of the gut. What this does is creates damage. It's creating a mismatch between function and supply. And the immediate response to that is that the bacteria interfere with normal digestion and normal absorption, but it creates an imbalance of gases. So most of the bacteria that you have either need oxygen or not oxygen, so they're aerobic and anaerobic. Most of them in the gut are anaerobic, and they will produce hydrogen as a byproduct. Hydrogen actually is quite beneficial because it actually stimulates the gut and encourages gut movement. But if there's a disruption in that and it stays in too long, it then absorbs carbon, and so we then get methane. Methane is mostly produced in the lower colon. Good old fart. But if it's in the small intestine, it's got nowhere to go. So the small intestine, if that transit time is 2 hours, it sits in the small intestine. The small intestine then becomes a bit like the kids' parties with the balloons. You tie one end, which is your stomach, you tie the other one, which is your ileocecal valve, into the large intestine, and now you produce gas. That balloon is going to expand. And so small intestine overgrowth, bacterial overgrowth, is significantly affected by gas. So you get bloating, and it becomes painful. You can't get rid of it. So the effect of SIBO is bloating. You get physically swelling, and you get belching, you get flatulence. In fact, it's the belching and flatulence gives you a bit of relief because at least you're getting rid of some of the gas. The trouble with the gas is that the methane encourages slower movement of the gut. It shuts down, and the gut, that movement slows down, so you have a higher chance of constipation. So you're going to get a disruption with the bowel movements. You're either going to get diarrhea, or you get constipation, or you get a bit of mixed remote. You keep swinging from one to the other because of this gas production. So the pain is from the intestines actually physically being irritated and becoming sensitive. So any other foods that come through start now irritating the gut. We start getting heartburn, reflux. We're getting areas with either too much movement, so we're not absorbing right, or we're getting too little movement, so we're now reabsorbing too much water, so now we're getting constipation. So this becomes a very uncomfortable or painful and confusing time for the patient. We then start getting changes in how we function. So we become harder to tolerate carbohydrates because bacteria love sugars. So we have something to eat, especially if we're feeling tired, we have a sweet, and next thing we're distended. So within half an hour, the food is now moving into the small intestine from outside, so 2 hours, over 2 hours, so 2.5 hours, comes away from the stomach, hits the small intestine, the bacteria go, yeah, they feed and they give us more gas. So that bloating within 2.5 hours after food is classic of that. As I said, you get malabsorption, but also in response to this, you get irritation and you get absorption of different chemicals, so you get a histamine response. So people start getting itchy, they start getting the same elements of rashes, they may get brain fog, they become very irritable because of the histamine response. So how common is it? This is actually a lot more common than you think, because most of these symptoms are put down to that vague irritable bowel syndrome. The bowel's just a bit irritated, but most of irritable bowel syndrome is SIBO. It's an imbalance of the bacteria. So depending on what your symptoms were, that will determine what the mainstream medicine would treat. So it's suggested that SIBO is up to around 25% of the UK population, and to put that into it's the most common gastrointestinal disorder, but it falls under that umbrella of that term irritable bowel. And to put that into context, celiac disease is around 1, 2, some references even put it up 4, 5%, and diabetes in the population is around 6%. So this is significant, and gut health is a significant issue affecting multiple levels of our health. The other concept of that then under the umbrella term of irritable bowel is of immense importance, but it's obviously a lot of times it's downplayed. Everyone gets a bit of an upset stomach, but it's defined really more as abdominal pain and discomfort, which is in association with altered bowel habits over a period of at least 3 months. But it never refers to when everything in medicine or healthcare is referred to as a syndrome. Syndrome is of multiple symptoms of unknown or questionably why it occurs, unknown cause. So a lot of people irritable bowel, it'll be because we've eaten something. Some people put it down to stress. And you'll see when you understand the function of the gut and the gut bacteria, why that will be a significant cause. And the cause is very seldom treated. It's usually the symptoms. If you've got constipation, we treat that. If you've got diarrhea, we treat that. And through time, you'll feel more comfortable. That's seen as a gain. But the key within functional medicine is the cause. So traditionally, processes with irritable bowel are very vague. There'll be general things about look at your food, identify what makes it worse, find ways to relax, get some more exercise. There will be a generalized approach which will help some people some of the time, for a little bit of the time. You might also then eventually see a dietitian who may look at your diet. We will probably mention what's called a FODMAP. Has anyone heard or know what a FODMAP is? We'll come to that in a second. You might even actually identify some coping mechanisms and at least identify the mental health side of how significantly this could affect someone. So even some therapies like CBT. The interesting thing is when you look at the medications that could be prescribed, they can vary hugely because they're dependent on what symptoms are relevant for that person. So they can go from painkillers, analgesics, to antibiotics. At least they identify that the gut is an issue. Could also be antispasmodics, because if you're getting the spasms, or it might even be a muscle relaxant to help release that. It could be laxatives, because we need to get things moving. It might actually be an anti-metabolite, so as to slow things down. So it can be very, very vague, and it might even result in antidepressants, which fall under the prescription advice for someone with chronic symptoms suffering from irritable bowel. The challenge with this approach is not testing anything. It's not looking at anything of what is actually the underlying cause. So from a functional medicine perspective, we go into identify that people are a lot more complex than just what's the symptom. So we've got to look at how we're digesting. We've got to look at how's the gut functioning in defense and repair. What's our energy systems like? How's the food being transported through the gut? How are different things communicating as far as neurotransmitters? So you want to have a better idea with that. What are the triggers, and then also what are lifestyle factors? So you've got to look at a far bigger aspect of, and go for that element of why. Why would this gut be giving these symptoms rather than what are the symptoms and how can we make it more comfortable? That may be valid in a short time, but it's not getting to the underlying cause. So there are labs out there which generally are not being used, or the tests aren't being used from an NHS perspective unless you get probably very high up down the line of very significant investigation. So one of the labs we use is Genova. It's one of probably the forerunner and the leader of investigative functional medicine investigation. And it's all about looking at the cause. These are some of the tests that you would run potentially for someone with significant gut health issues. So you've got a specific SIBO where they actually test the hydrogen and methane levels. You've got Nutribol, which is a urine and blood test, which is looking for overall markers of what are your vitamin level statuses, what is your minerals, what are your amino acids, what are your fatty acids, what are your biomarkers, how are you actually functioning. You've also got the GI effects, which I'm going to come to, methylation, and then also in the recent times, you've got the genetic element of what are you genetically predisposed, how do you break down, and what is your genetics telling us of how you would cope with gluten, how will you cope with caffeine, how do you cope with, so once you start doing different triggers, you can anticipate how people would process and function. This is this is a game changer. And we look at the GI effects. So this is off the Genova website as an example. It starts measuring how we're digesting, your levels of inflammation, your gut balance, actually measures and looks at your gut bacteria balance, and then you're looking at metabolic imbalance, and then for markers of infection. It goes then off to look at the balance of where you go. I won't bore you with all the details, but it talks about how the balance and the amount of gut bacteria. It looks at all your different enzymes of how you're functioning, and then it starts measuring the actual bacteria. What is the balance and what is the amount that you have of the main specific gut bacteria that we need. It also tests then for parasites, and it also tests then for how whatever comes up. So this one comes up with a bacteria which is out of sync, and then it looks at what are the interventions that it would suggest from a medical perspective, so known antibiotics which are specific for that, and also then your natural agents which we work on. So in this case, berberine, oregano, and usually garlic comes up significant, not on this one. But there's usually a specific suggestions that they make, and it gives you kind of which pathways would be most likely to look for. So it's a huge amount of information. It does come at a cost, because this is outside of the NHS. This is private. So a lot of these companies that we tend to use, you're looking at your test will be, which is for your food intolerances, a finger prick test. It tells us which blood group, which food groups are you likely to have immunological response to, so your sensitivities and tolerances, not your allergies. That's usually around 140 pounds. Some of the Genova ones you could be going up to 400 or 500 pounds. But I'm sure, like in your industry, you get what you get from the information. So different consultations and advice will come at different costs for different amounts of information. Not everyone needs the Genova GI effect straight away. You can work with their diet initially, but in more significant cases, you might need more information. LifeCode GX, they're the ones who really are developing the genotype, so looking at your gene history, not are you prone to this, but more of your genetic SNP suggests that you would process some things in a different way. An example of that is we all know the person who goes out for a meal, has one glass of wine, and they're giggling a mess, or they're falling asleep on the couch, and someone else will drink all night and not seemingly have an effect. And a lot of that is down to the genetic SNPs and from mom and dad, and the combinations of that. We can have a fast processor or a low processor. Someone who have caffeine and they can have 1 cup of coffee in the morning, and then they are wide awake at night. Another person can have a couple of cups of coffee 6, 7 o'clock at night, and they sleep like a baby. And we process things in different ways. So that's looking at the genetic. A lot of people are using Medichecks. This is not necessarily gut health, but are using Medichecks for things like cholesterol levels, hormone levels, male and female hormone levels, because they're having access to this quickly, privately, online, and the GP is giving an interpretation. So a lot of more people are more aware of Medichecks and Thriver online. They've been advertised through Facebook, etc., because they are quicker and easier to access than finding an appointment with a health professional, having an appointment, getting that information. We use Cytoplan, is a NutriAdvance, or 2 companies we work closely with as far as our supplements. And in fact, most of the information that I go through today comes from Genova and from NutriAdvance. They are very much the forefront of the functional medicine support companies. So FODMAPs. You'll often say to someone, oh, I'm on a FODMAP diet. What does it mean? Well, FODMAP really stands for your fermentable, your oligosaccharides, your disaccharides, monosaccharides, and your polyols. These are the food types that generally create more irritation or feed the gut bacteria more. So the FODMAP, you don't need to remember what that stands for, but these are the foods or types of foods that supply the bacteria with yummy food that really makes them function and work exceptionally well, and in this case, too well. So these are the foods that we tend to react. So if your gut bacteria is unsettled, it's unbalanced, FODMAPs are going to make your symptoms worse. Because the general thing would be, oh, well, you're just going to eat some green leafy veg, and you eat some of that. These foods this is good for your gut. But on one hand, so what we're talking about here is when the gut is unbalanced. Because we all know that garlic and onion are good, healthy foods to have in our diet. But the fiber of food is what the bacteria feed on, and they love that and sugar. Garlic and onions are one of the most significant foods you can have to irritate and make the gut worse if it's already imbalanced. So some people say, well, I'm eating healthy, but I feel worse. Probably because it's a FODMAP food. So anyone wants that? This comes off a NutriAdvance lecture I was with. It's not my doing. There are multiple different types of FODMAP diets or low carb diets and all sorts that different professionals will advise. If someone wants a copy of that, I'll happily email it, but this is not the full repertoire and it's not the only options. But to give you an idea, when you look at milk, yogurt, you've got cow's milk, cream, yogurt. So everyone says, well, yogurt's good. That's good for the gut. But yogurt can be too high in bacteria and throw out the gut bacteria. Where you've got other elements of things like, well, I'll go off dairy, but a low FODMAP is brie, cheddar, feta are good options. So it gets confusing when it's like, well, I'll eat better and I'll eat because that'll help my gut. My gut is unsettled, and what I'll do, I'll just throw a probiotic in there and see what happens. So you can see why this advice of just eat healthy and that is going to be, can be detrimental. If someone then says, well, I'm going to drink chamomile tea because that's really good for me. And what I'll do is I'll have cashews and a few almonds because cashews are good. And I'll go into spring onions, a couple of sugar snap peas, and I like watermelon. They're in season, so I have watermelon. And all my symptoms are getting worse. It's because these provide a great amount of fiber as well as sugar in the right proportion for bacteria to thrive on. Now, if your bacteria is settled, it's balanced, you've got lots of diversity, they'll be fine. So the FODMAP is an approach to try and help people decipher which foods can I eat whilst my gut bacteria is unbalanced to eventually reduce the irritation and the reaction times as I heal. Because you damage the gut lining, it can take quite easily 3 to 4 months for the gut lining to heal. So we do something short term, we feel a bit better, we start eating again and everything stirs up again. So this gives us a game plan to try and what can I eat and be healthy. NutriAdvance have a program, and this is not unique for them within functional medicine of the 5 R's. How do you go about to improve the gut when we know the gut's unbalanced? And they really remove, so we want to remove the aggravating triggers. So that's where the FODMAP could help, or we know that if we have caffeine, it irritates the gut. Funny thing is, coffee is actually a low FODMAP food, but caffeine can irritate the gut. So if the gut lining is damaged, it irritates the gut lining, but it's not the actual caffeine which is feeding the bacteria. So then we've got to replace the important digestive enzymes and the stomach acid levels to help the gut restore function. We've got to reinoculate, so that's where the probiotic comes in. We've now trying to get rid of the weed killer. Now we've got to replace all the enzymes and nourishment in the soil. Now we then throw the seeds. That's the inoculate is the probiotic. Repair the gut mucosa, the lining of the gut. That's what takes time. And that's where most people fail because they start feeling a bit better, they go back to old ways, and then they keep bouncing back into symptoms. The repair takes a lot longer than people think, and then ideally down the line, we want to retain and keep the gut health as long as possible. So the ideal is that we have this situation all along, so we don't have to go through all the FODMAPs. So the ideal is to start with the gut health at its best and maintain it. So how do we support an optimal gut health? So this is where everything's balanced. How do we keep it? So these are some of the general advice factors out there. Gut bacteria feed off fiber. So food which has low fiber is generally not going to support the gut. You've got to feed the gut. You've got to look after it. And it likes fiber. It likes whole foods. It likes foods that have fiber in it. So the difference between an apple and the apple juice, if you take the apple and you juice it and you just take the juice from it, you're going to get a big sugar hit, and that's going to feed the gut. But the apple has got all the sugar stuck in the fiber. The bacteria are going to feed off the fiber and get a bit of the sugar. A lot of sugar actually gets passed out. So eating an apple is not the same as drinking the juice of that apple. Totally different physiological effects. Fermented foods, kombucha, sauerkraut, water kefir, and then your natural milk, unpasteurized milk. In this country, you can still get raw milk. In some other countries, it's regarded as unavailable. So the raw milk, because with pasteurization, they heat the milk, and so that the bacteria, the natural bacteria in the milk get destroyed. In fact, it's what happens with any food-bought dairy. And so when you have the equivalents of your products, which has got the natural yogurt in, and then they get destroyed, they're usually then adding a probiotic, adding the bacteria back into the product afterwards because it's already been destroyed by heating. Pasteurization heats to kill the bacteria, kill the bugs. And so when that says that it's a probiotic live, it's usually been added unless it's a raw product. Same with a lot of your shop or sauerkraut. It's not going to be natural. It's going to be artificially probiotic. It's going to be added afterwards. So the key thing is then eat a variety of food, eat the rainbow, think diversity. So not just eating green leafy veg, green leafy red leafy, you eat a whole lot of different natural foods. Nuts and seeds, your legumes, your beans, your chickpeas, your whole grains. The interesting with the whole grains, we always say be careful of whole grain. Whole grain is very topical because there's a thought process for whole grain takes longer to break down. But the husk, the casein, especially wheat, that's where all the chemicals from the seed sit. And remember, a seed, which is what a grain is designed to be picked up by a bird or an animal, eaten, and then passed through the gut, and then comes out the other side into the soil to then germinate. The husk has got a lot of resistant chemicals to stop being broken down. So a lot of people react not because of gluten or intolerance to wheat, but because of the chemical structure of the husk is designed to protect the seeds inside the husk, and to irritate the gut lining so it gets passed out quickly so it doesn't get broken down. So some dietary advice is actually to come off whole foods or whole wheat, whole grain foods, so that you don't get exposed to the husk. So sometimes brown bread and white bread are very different, or your wholemeal bread. Some people don't tolerate the wholemeal because of the husk element. Your low FODMAP diet is certainly an option. The processed food or the ultra processed foods are the biggies in our modern day diet. They're the ones which are containing the refined sugars, which the gut bacteria love, and they have no or very little nutritional value. Sweet stuff for the same things. The sweet stuff is not necessarily table sugar, it's also your fruit. So a lot of people tend to go, I'm eating well, so I'm going to support my gut bacteria. So all they do is the fruit is sweeter, tastes nice, so we eat more fruit, the gut bacteria get thrown out. Timely meals, again, the circadian rhythm, the eating late at night, the gut bacteria are not set up to do their job around that. Stress is a big one, lifestyle elements like smoking, good night's sleep, and hydration. Not rocket science. They're all the general advice, but when you identify how these affect the gut bacteria and how significant gut bacteria affect our health, then I think hopefully you see the bigger picture. So what are the signs of a healthy bowel? Right, we talk about being regular, but if we had to go around this room, regular to everyone would be a very different thing. Some people it's once or twice a day, other people it might be once or twice a week, and then some people it might be every other week. You go to the loo and pass stool once a day, the thought of only going once a week or every fortnight will seem quite painful. The idea, if your normal regular rhythm is once a week, the idea of passing stool every day seems like that must be like diarrhea. So the term regular is very, very general. But generally regular means that you pass a soft, well-formed stool, and it's easily passed, and it generally happens anywhere from 1 to 3 times a day, 3 times a week. The general advice, but it's very individual. The key of change of bowel habit is just that. What is your normal, and how has it changed? Good function really is that we should be able to regulate, but we also should be able to hold on for a short time before needing that urge, that sudden urge to go to the toilet. We should be able to hold on. Should be able to pass a bowel within about a minute of sitting down. It should be easy and not painful. We shouldn't be straining. And we should be able to not struggle, and also we should be able to completely empty our bowel without the need to have to return very quickly to finish off. And the key with bowel function is your body has the beauty of giving you feedback. And that's the key of knowing your poop. I had to just pick the time. Every one of us has the ability to look at your poop. It gives us the indicator. Is there broken down food? Is there undigested food? Your transit time. Beetroot or sweet corn. When do you eat it? How long does it take until it goes the other way? That'll give you an idea. If it's coming out 4 weeks down the line, that's way too slow. If it's coming out within an hour or two, that's way too quick. So your body is this ability, we just need to connect and listen to identify. I don't know how well you can see the diagram, but type 1, the 1 and 2 is constipation. Dry. But this is where the bolus has stayed in the lower colon far too long and it's reabsorbed all the water. Because most of the water is reabsorbed in your lower colon. So if we're passing, hard lumps, they're difficult, they're hard, they're lumpy, it's painful, it takes a long time to pass a stool, we're probably on the side of more constipation, and therefore we're also going way too infrequent. We know that. 3 and 4 is ideal. 5, 6, and 7 is more leaning towards diarrhea. So now we've got the opposite. We've got irritation, the body is passing food too quickly, we're not absorbing water, so the bolus becomes more fluid, and therefore we've either got irritation or imbalance, or there's a need for the body to get rid of whatever is irritating. Your body gives you the feedback. And the interesting stat is that the concept of constipation is suggested that it affects between 3 and 15% of the population. These are concepts that are not uncommon. Concepts of diarrhea, irregular bowel habits. Some people will, again, it's not spoken of, some people will live on laxatives. As long as I take laxatives every couple of days, I'm okay. But the question is not what, it's also why. Why would you need to do that? That's a bit like saying, as long as I take anti-inflammatories every day, I can keep functioning. It's like, well, why would you need that support? What's going on? We need to be asking why. So where do we start? In our past talks, we've spoken about looking at the physical, emotional, and chemical. We also talk about a wellness wheel. In today's talk, we've kind of summarized everything in the note in front of you. The main thing is about going back to the basics. You don't necessarily need to start off with doing a gastrointestinal stool sample from Genova and spending hundreds of pounds. We generally have got generally a decent functioning bowel, but we want to support the bowel and have better gut health, then there's generally some very easy basic things to look at and then say, well, how am I functioning? How am I managing these things? Speaking of Nutrivals, we do also work with NutriAdvance, and then they have a package which you can view on their website, but you can only order it through the website as long as it's through with a practitioner which works with them, which is what we do. This is an intense 6-week gut clearance protocol. It's not terrible, but it's not something that you just can do on the side half-heartedly. You've got to really be going right, because what it does is goes through everything from your food list, your recipes, your meal planners, your gut support supplements. It is a protocol. It's not something like, oh, I'll just do a bit and see if that helps my gut. This is a 6-week commitment of working on identifying, and sometimes people need a little bit more help with this, some added supplements depending on their unique situation. They might need some acid or digestive enzyme support. They might need something more specific. But it's to make you aware that these options do exist out there. And you can find more information on NutriAdvanced, or when this goes up on YouTube, or get hold of Rachel or myself or Trudy at the office, and we can pass on that information. What we tend to do is have a consultation with a person who's interested in this, delve into a little more lifestyle elements, and see, is this suitable, and go through that protocol. Some people need a little more support with this, because it's, as I said, it's not crazily difficult, but it is more keeping people on that protocol and doing it correctly to get the full benefit. And it's about really resetting, eliminating those triggers, resetting the gut, and then supporting it to rebuild. So it's those 5 R's. If along these lines of on a wellness and functional medicine protocol resonates with you, we'd encourage you to check out a couple of these like-minded professionals. And if you're into your podcasts, then please follow us via these social media paths, but also our podcasts. I do a kind of weekly, every fortnight podcast with Ollie Matthews, who has his background more in physical training, but is also working with functional medicine protocols and lifestyle factors. So we just hook up. It is unplugged. We don't generally catch up with a script. We just hook up, and it came out from us. Just actually ended up. I've adjusted Ollie for years, and we were just talking. And so why don't we just record what we're talking and make it available? So we often will start off going, what are we talking about today, and go from there. So it is unplugged. It's very informal, but we think it's worthwhile and get some good information out there. If there's anything that we can do to support you, your family, or your friends, please get in contact with us. You have our details. If there's anything what we talk about which resonates with you, but you'd like more information or more idea of how we can support you, then please make contact with us. And if there's any other future talks or anything that you feel we'd like us to cover, particularly along the functional medicine side, that element of health, well-being, and optimum function, then please feel free to let us know. We love coming out and gets us out of the office. It changes our Monday pattern, and it's great to connect with people, and also hopefully make people more aware that we as a practice and as a business and individuals have a lot more to offer than what people perhaps traditionally think of. Chiropractic, they do this. Our centre is at the forefront really of more wellness, vitalistic and functional healthcare care. Generally, if there's any specific questions relating to your health or so, ideally always encourage people to chat to me either personally or contact Rachel or Trudy or myself afterwards. But if there's any general questions or anything that what I've covered today need some clarification, then this is your time to ask. The challenge with a lot of commercial products is that to satisfy the safety element, they have to be pasteurized if they're dairy based. So what they tend to do is they are pasteurized, and then they are then inoculated with gut bacteria. And a lot of the times it is a bit of a marketing ploy, because when you go down and look at what's in there, they're two mostly common needed ones, but they're very vague. They're not a full. When you look at a true probiotic supplement, like we use the Cytoplant Cytobiotic, it's a wide variety. It's looking to support that diversity rather than the lactobacillus or bacilloid, or they will just have one or two, and it ticks the box of it's a probiotic. Something natural, live cultured yogurt or milk will have a wide variety, because it's literally getting what would be given to baby cow. The concept is great, but actually the product is usually there's better products to support restoring gut health through the probiotic than a lot of the basic commercials. Anything these days of dairy that is going to have probiotic put in, because they know that people are looking out for more.
What about if you buy your own?
As in make your own?
Yeah.
Best way.
Yeah, it's natural. Yeah.
See, I did that, and also with the milk kefir, and then I just found that I was having so much more dairy. So I do the water kefir. So it's the same element. You take the water. So if anyone knows, you have the crystals, which are actually raw microbes. They are bacteria, and you feed them. So you feed them with sugar. So the water one, you boil water. So you get around boiling, it gets rid of the chloride from tap water. You let it cool, and then I generally like ginger beer, so I put ginger in it. And so then you put a ton of sugar in. But what you're doing then is you're letting it brew and ferment, and then the bacteria eat all the sugar, and they produce a fermented drink. So water kefir, for me, I like, because it tastes like ginger beer. I just make ginger beer and drink that. Whereas the milk kefir, I just found I was making so much and not getting through it. But that's the product. That's the way to do it. And making your natural yogurt is the way to do it, because it's creating the natural probiotic in its natural form, which is bioavailability, and how your body processes that is the way to go. And the same with sauerkraut. Go online, YouTube. If someone is interested, I can give you some links. Sauerkraut is really easy to. Same with kimchi.
Is there a better place to buy the kefir than others?
Well, again, as I said, you've got to look at where you're buying it from and the elements of it. Has it been pasteurized and then added to rainbow
crystals.
The crystals?
If you buy the crystals, how do you establish where's a good place to buy and where it's not such a good place?
It's a tough one because there's so many places you can just buy them. You go onto Amazon, you can buy them. I've only really got mine from other people. Same with kombucha, with the SCOBY. You just break some off and you just grow them own. So I've only really got them off from other friends and colleagues. But I would presume that there are better sources than others. But generally, they are, what's the word, they kind of self-perpetuate. They just grow themselves. So as long as they are healthy and they're growing, then they're going to create the fermentation that you're after. It's like anything, it just depends on how technical you want to get. So you'd ideally want to have organic kefir, or you want organic milk. So Hall Farm in out towards Past Brook you can buy raw milk. So if you took raw milk and then created kefir, that would be probably the best combination. Yeah, so water kefir maybe. And then the other thing is also, if you then find that you are having a lot of, so this is what I meant, is that you're trying to keep this talk too short, because I could do one just on fermented foods, because if you are have a high histamine amount, so stress levels are up, and your natural genetic code is that you don't process histamine very well. Some people will go on to kefir and say, this is supporting my gut, and they come out in hives and urticaria and get all histamine response. So it's a very personal thing that you've got to kind of play with it. So so looking at water kefir probably would be better for you than looking at dairy if you're looking at the lactose element of the sugar, because water kefir is not going to come in with the sugar. And if you do the fermentation right, you're going to have actually a very low sugar content, because so you would ferment yours longer, so it makes sure that the bacteria eat and utilize all the sugar, because your water kefir shouldn't have a high sugar content, because the bacteria converts the sugar into the fermentation, into the carbohydrate gas, that will give you the fizz, and then it creates the bacterial fermentation in the fluid. So a proper water kefir shouldn't have much of the sugar content. So as I said, the goal of these talks is to spark interest and probably a bit of confusion, because when you look into nutrition, and as we've done in one of our other talks, when you look at research, nutrition and health is not as simple as 1 + 1 = 2 for all of us. It's 1 + 1 = all these derivatives. And these are concepts. So some people will look at, so you'll see in that note I generally start as the best way to start is generally a good balanced diet, an 80-20 rule. If all of us kind of tightened our nutrition in thinking of gut health, 80% of the time, 20% of the time, we can have a takeaway, we can have a sweet treat. Most of us are not going to have an issue with SIBO or irritable bowel. But if you get more and more technical, it seems to be more and more narrow, and it becomes very technical. And you think, there must be a right way and a wrong way. And what works for you may not work for someone else. And that's why working with someone or going on that, and so that gut transformation program, some people can find it very easy, others really find it quite a challenge, because it depends, our starting point is all different. But the main thing is to highlight that there are things out there that you can do, there are things that can help, and even just go back to basics. And most importantly, as I say, they connect with the subtleties. So what is my poo looking like? What is my bowel habit like? I eat these foods, or I went on so most people, if they're something that's very poor fiber and they're going to a more fiber diet, their transit time is going to increase. A bit like someone who's dehydrated and they start drinking more water, they keep going to the toilet more. You've got to kind of look at the subtleties and understand the body's going to change if you change the food structure. So keep it really basic. So we love the smoothies, because the smoothies are a great way to introduce some fiber and they taste well, they're easy to just bring in some green leafy veg. For some people, the idea of having green leafy veg every day seems like a major change. Other people are like, yeah, that's straightforward, I already do that. Start with where you are, and just small increments can make a big difference. But if we think of more gut and gut bacteria, hopefully you can see that when we think about gut bacteria and the importance of a balanced gut bacteria and how it influences. So if someone who's got cardiovascular issues, in functional medicine, the most important starting point is usually diet, because it's easiest to influence and to see where someone is. And from a chronic health issue, as Hippocrates says, it all starts at the gut. From a functional medicine perspective, it's usually start at the gut and then go on, because that's where really a lot of things happen. And the gut bacteria, as you hopefully can see, have such a big role in so many other systems, that for someone who's, if you're low mood, you've got no energy, life is stressful, the concept of, without any idea of why, the concept of them eating more healthily seems preposterous. You just want instant food. So gut bacteria love chocolate. And they love the sugar in the chocolate. And if we want quick energy, but the bacteria aren't stupid. They're also suffering, so they want quick energy. So they will give us the craving. The same other way around is that we should be going to sleep, and then we eat a full-on meal. It's like, geez, now it's hard to digest. The gut bacteria is tucking away, and they're going, what? How am I supposed to process all this? I'm now going to sleep mode. So the starting point I always think is getting back into contact with what does my body already tell me? What do I already know? And then can I add different things just to support the gut and see what happens? It can make a huge difference in our short-term health, but then also the long-term goals. So literally, hopefully, food for thought. Thank you very much for your time. We're all got busy afternoons, so thank you for everything. If there's anything we can support you with or give you more information, then please let us know.